Do you remember when you were little and probably your mama used to tell you that you were priceless?
Yeah.
Do you still think you're priceless?
Nah.
I don't know. I think my baby is priceless. I will say that. But about my own self, I don't know.
Yeah. It's funny how sometimes the people around you can see your true value more than you can see it yourself, right?
Oh, I agree with that. So let's see how we feel about like our value and worth, and if we actually think we have any.
Excellent show idea.
Let's talk about it.
Let's go.
This is Mikel-Claire.
And this is Trey.
And we are the couple of entrepreneurs. We're here to share with you our journey of successes and setbacks as we enter the world of entrepreneurship now that we no longer have 9-to-5s due to the new normal of the world and the pandemic.
Join us as we race the clock to start earning money, gain consistency, and overcome self-doubts and uncertainty as we search for our voices and obtain personal and financial growth.
So how do you determine your value or worth?
Well, let's see. Are we talking about me in terms of the physical me, the biological me, or are we talking about like my worth regarding the things that I sell?
Well, let's go with the things that you sell, since this is an entrepreneurial podcast.
Well, that's pretty simple. I think the easiest way to determine initial value, at least a good starting point, is to see what the market says. And what I mean by seeing what the market says is you go out and you research who is doing the exact same thing that you're doing, be it a product that you're selling or a service that you're providing. And then that kind of will set the base of what it is that you're, selling, its value. And then depending on what you do will determine if that value is going to increase or decrease. I'm assuming that you probably had a different way of determining value.
Well, for me, I price my supplies if I have any, because, in a cake business, it's a little different than online business sometimes, because you still have supplies. Like you may have to buy a certain software or something like that. Mm-hmm. So I price my supplies. I look at the time that it's going to take me to complete a task, because time is money, as we know. And the more time that you have to spend on something, the more money it should cost. Let's be real about that. And then I look at the pricing, like you said, of people with comparable skills to me, to see what they're charging. So not somebody that's necessarily doing crappy work, but somebody that actually has the same skill level that I do, and see what they're charging. Because then, like people at the top of their game, their customers, if you want the same type of customers, then you got to charge the similar amount if you're at that same skill level.
I think looking at what other people do will give you a good solid idea, especially when it comes to the effort that you're going to put in to either match that value or preferably exceed it. Hopefully you're not going to undervalue the products and services that you're giving. But yeah, that's a good place to start. When dealing with pricing, I know with your business, a lot of times you have to actually see the customer face to face. Whereas the majority of times with my business, I can hide behind the masks of the internet and not actually have to look my customers in the eye. So I wonder, during those opportunities when you do have to meet your customer, are you shy about talking about pricing?
Well, the interesting thing is, initially when customers first contact me, it's all online or on email or over the phone. So I don't actually have to see them face to face initially, which is kind of good because, well, the interesting thing is when I first started out in my cake business in particular, I was extremely shy about pricing until I discovered that I wasn't making it worth my time to do the work, and what I was doing, not everybody can do. So once I realized that it was something that, like I said, not everybody could do, then I knew that I could charge a higher cost for it. Like if you pay for eggs, milk, and butter and flour, not everybody can create what I can create from those ingredients. Initially, when I had doubt in my abilities and in my skills, then I tended to undercharge. That was the initial thing. I didn't recognize my abilities, and then that caused me to just not charge my worth, which was really interesting and frustrating. And then there was this other thing where I was actually kind of afraid that people were going to run away once I gave them a quote for what I was pricing. And I just was like, oh my gosh, that's way too high. I felt like anytime anyone saw anything over $100, they would run away. And I was like, well, I'm just going to make it $95 and see what they say, no matter what the size of the cake was or whatever, or the design. And I learned that just really was wasting my time. So what about you? Are you shy about pricing? I know you said that you can kind of hide behind the veil of the computer and the internet, but is it something that you're kind of like afraid of?
I can actually remember one of the first times I actually had to deal with that. In the previous podcast, we were talking about had we ever started our own businesses before, and one of the very first businesses I had ever started as a young boy was a lawn care cutting company. My dad at the time, who was kind of like help coaching me through all of this, because I was just inexperienced and didn't really know what I was doing. The price point that he had set at the time, I think it was like $30 a yard. And you have to keep in mind, I'm from Tennessee and from a relatively small town in Tennessee. And this is the South. The yards are kind of big, but the average going price at that time was probably like about, $15. So the service that I was offering was doubled what the kids in the neighborhood were pretty much offering. And my father was like pretty stern on that. He's like, no, you're going to charge $30 because what you're offering is something that nobody else offers. You're offering scheduling, you're offering a time, other additional workers. It's going to be more than just you. You're a professional. He kept going on and on. And that sounded good on paper, and it sounded good for my father to tell me, that there's more value in what it is that you're giving. But then when, I'm walking around the neighborhood with my little folder with my little contracts and the pricing plan and all that, and I knocked on the door, and then, Miss Johnson opens the door, and then she looks at you. All of that kind of like went out the window, because it was an uncomfortable feeling to tell somebody that I'm going to charge you double. And I think a big piece of what you said plays into that. And that was, I just didn't have confidence in the service that I was providing. I didn't have confidence in that value that my dad easily saw it. And he was like, yeah, absolutely. This is the price you're going to charge. I didn't believe in myself. I didn't believe in the product, and I didn't believe what I was capable of. So that's why it was extremely uncomfortable. When you were talking about how it affected you, that really resonates with me. Whereas now my business is done behind the veil of the internet. So I could put my price out there and kind of just walk away. I don't have to really look my customers in the eye and see the rejection per se. Because when you do have somebody reject you face to face, that's a totally different kind of feeling than it is when you're just checking your computer to see how many sales that you have.
That's true, because like I said, in my cake business, when I send a pricing quote, I send it over 95% of the time. It's over email. And so when I don't hear anything back, or like they ghost and you just don't hear anything after you send the quote out, I mean, you do feel a little bit of rejection, but that's different than somebody sitting in your face and just being like, no, I'm not going to pay that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because it's kind of like you take it personally a little bit. That's why sometimes I used to undervalue myself.
Here's the thing that's funny. When you were talking about how difficult it can be when you charge a premium on your services. And I've seen your cakes. I've seen the effort that you've taken to make your product. I've seen how beautiful they are, and they are absolutely stunning. And for me, it's an absolute no-brainer that your price point is what it is. It's like, yeah, of course, the price of the products, the time, the effort, your skill set. You're taking personal requests from people on top of it? Yeah, absolutely. So in my eyes, when you do have those moments when there is going to be a bit of disappointment because somebody isn't going to purchase at that price point, because you're a human being. So there's going to be a little bit for me, because I'm on the outside looking in. I'm like, that person could go kick rocks. They don't see the value that you're offering.
I think what happens is it's all about perspective. And so like when you think of yourself and your own value, it's kind of harder sometimes, not for all people, but it's harder sometimes to like know your abilities, know your skill level, and charge accordingly. Because I think for me, like I'm modest in a way. I mean, I'm very modest about my skills and my ability. I think so. So other people looking at your skill and your ability, and people that can't necessarily do what you do, they may see it differently.
Right.
So it's interesting because that's just how it is a lot of times. It's hard to recognize your own skill level. So why do you think people actually, including yourself, let's be specific too, why do you think you buy overpriced, like expensive items?
Oh, I definitely fall victim to that in two categories, actually. One is gadgets. I buy overpriced gadgets because that's my wheelhouse. That's what I enjoy. You know, that's the thing that brings me pride and joy, is knowing that I have like the best of the best type gadget. Somebody who doesn't have that passion, that's the most ridiculous thing in the world. Like, why would you pay for an overpriced computer when there's something that can almost do the exact same thing? The example I'm giving is like Apple products. You know, I love my Mac. I do. It's a totally overpriced machine, and I know that. But I'm paying for that premium. I'm paying for that status. I'm paying for my ego. You know, that's just what it is. My other thing is I love Jordans. I do. Totally overpriced shoe. Absolutely overpriced shoe. And I have no problem being like, okay, well, you know, I want my shoe game to look nice. It's just something that I've put value into since I was like 11 years old, and it's just followed me until now. But the crazy funny thing is I'm not a fan of Kanye West shoes, Yeezys. The price point on his shoes is absolutely ridiculous. It's completely retarded. But I'm the biggest hypocrite in the world to point at somebody and say, you would pay that kind of money for some Yeezys? And I'm sitting here doing the exact same thing for some J's. You know, I get that. There's something to be said about the uniqueness of somebody's perceived value of something. And the people that kind of get that can exploit it. And well, now even, you know what, that's a terrible way to describe that. I don't think it's exploiting. They're just, you know, taking advantage of what somebody wants. How about you? Do you have some things that are kind of like overpriced, and do you feel some kind of way about that?
Well, one thing that you said, I don't consider it like taking advantage of, because for me, like, first of all, I buy what I like. I'm not really a name brand person per se. Okay. But I mean, if I like it, then I will buy it regardless of the name brand. And it's probably because I believe in you get what you pay for. Okay. I believe in the quality of things. Mm-hmm. So sometimes, not always, but 90% of the time, what I've found, if it's a higher price item, a lot of times it's better material, it's made better, it lasts longer. So I think in that regard, that's how I look at it as a consumer. I get what I pay for. Right. So and then the same goes for if I'm on the other foot, if I'm the person that's selling something, you're going to get what you pay for. If you pay a premium price for whatever it is that I'm providing, then you will get a premium product. Right. So I think it all has to go with the value of something. So for Jordans, I mean, those things better run around and walk and help you jump and give you magic basketball wings and all that good stuff. But I mean, you get what you pay for. That's why I kind of may buy an overpriced item.
All right. Well, the flip side of that is then how do you feel about discounted items? Things that, you know, you're kind of getting for a steal. Is there a guilt in that?
Is there a guilt in offering that or in buying that?
Let's entertain both.
It's interesting now that I kind of think about it. People that are at the top of their industry don't really give discounts. Yeah. I think it's because they offer a higher value rather than give you a discounted price. They may give you something that, like I said, is going to be waterproof on their shoes, like something that adds value to what it is that you're getting so that you understand why you're paying a higher price. Okay. So if you discount something, it kind of, it makes it seem cheaper. Mm-hmm. Not always. I'm just giving you my opinion, but it may make it seem cheaper, and it lowers the value in a way for me. Okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with it if you're trying to gain customers, but then they expect a lower price or they'll wait around for discounts rather than paying you your value. Right. So I don't know, like how do you feel about discounts? Do you think it's worth it or not? Well,
I think it's kind of a bit of a double-edged sword because I do like a deal. I'm not going to lie. And sometimes I'll have a good deal, and I do think that I'm still getting a value product as well. But then there are other things like certain lines of like, okay, let's take for instance in cars. There's a lot of car companies that have subgroups. You know, like I want to say like Hyundai has a luxurious car line with Acura, I think that's what it is. And then like Toyota is like Lexus, I think is what it is. People that always buy Lexuses and people that always buy Acuras or whatever, I'm sure they feel some kind of way about the lower end spectrum of those cars. Whereas some people that just aren't in that price point don't see the value in spending an additional, you know, $15, $20, $30, $40,000 for a vehicle just to have, you know, leather seats and I don't know, some hyperallergenic air conditioning system or whatever it is. I think it depends on where you are as the buyer determines your perception on if you're getting value if something's being overpriced. There's no such thing as overpriced if you're Jeff Bezos or if you're the owner of Facebook or if you just have a ton of wealth, then there's no such thing as overpriced. It's just you just go straight for value. But if you're, you know, a broke college student, there is a perceived idea of paying more for value and then just kind of like being left with what's left because that's what you can afford. So their perception of the value of what they're getting is just different. I have shopped at the dollar store before. Many times I've gone to Family Dollar and gotten eggs or whatever it is that was there when I was a, you know, broke college student. I didn't see anything wrong with it because that's just where I was in that space. I'm not in that space right now, so I'm not going to do that. My perceived value of that has shifted because I'm in a different income bracket. So I just think it depends on where you are determines value.
I missed the discounts part because I think you were talking more about value, perceived value.
Maybe I'm confusing like discount, like you go to Burger King and you get a value meal and then that's your discount from buying the burger separately. For me, I think I put it into like a bigger category with like say Lexus and Toyota. Toyota's like the discounted brand. It's still a car. The Lexus is the perceived higher value. Okay. But it's only perceived higher if you're
where
down looking up.
I was thinking for me, discount meant like 15% off type of thing. That's what it, in my head, that's what a discount is, or like giving.
Right. Okay. Well, in those terms, if we're just talking about like I see a pair of jeans on sale, no, I don't think it's necessarily less value if you discount something. It's just, you just kind of caught the price at a good time. You got a deal. That's what it feels like to me. But if there is a lower brand of Levi's called Gvi's or whatever it is, then I'm probably going to think that's a different type of quality.
Are you going to discount your services? That's what I think we're getting at. Like, do discounts devalue your worth?
Okay.
Like your worth, your specific worth when you're pricing yourself or your services at something?
Yeah, I think it can. Let's just say you make a software and then the new version of that software is about to come out. So you're going to discount the old one because it's not really value anymore. It doesn't have the same value anymore because you've created something that has more value now. So yeah, its value has declined.
So can you think of a time like in your business where you didn't ask for your value or worth, like on a project or just in your business in general?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I've had some interesting part-time and summertime jobs as a kid. I used to be a Boy Scout, and I used to work at this Boy Scout camp. And I remember at the interview, the guy was like, okay, so how much do you think you should get paid? That question came up, and I was just happy to be working. So I was like, I just want to get in for the most part. You just pay me what you think I'm worth. And he did that. He paid me minimum wage. And I didn't really realize how much he had gotten over on me until I got to the camp. And, you talk to other people that's working there and you're like, well, how much are you getting paid? And the conversation getting paid came up and everybody else's wages was different than mine. It was more. It wasn't like exceedingly more, but that's not the point. It's the principle. But I didn't value myself. I valued just trying to work and not understanding the process of getting paid. And, I felt some kind of way about that. And I remember like talking to my parents about that, and they was like, well, did you, sign the form and all that? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, yeah, well, you stuck with that. That's what it is. And, my dad has a very famous line that I use with my family all the time. And he's like, well, what did you learn? Don't undervalue yourself, So that was a pretty big lesson. How about you?
Well, before we move on to me, how did that make you feel? And did you learn from it, or did you continue to not charge your worth from then on out?
It made me feel like crap, one, and it made me disappointed in myself, two. And then I realized that I let fear get in the way and desperation get in the way, fear of missing out on this opportunity. I sold myself short because I was desperate. And you can't let desperation dictate your value. So that was a big thing that I learned. But the anger, I was really upset. I was upset with that guy that hired me for quite some time. He was a good guy, and by the time, camp was over and everything, it was a very difficult job. I didn't hate him anymore, but I definitely learned a very valuable lesson.
I think for me, there have been a few times that I can think of when I didn't ask for my value or worth on a project or in business. I know, like you, when I was initially starting out, straight out of college and looking for employment, I didn't recognize my value. I didn't understand the skills that I had, and that I had a undergraduate degree and a master's degree coming out of college. I didn't recognize that. So for me, I was like, oh, I need a job. So literally, I remember I was working as at the YMCA, which is fine. I love the YMCA. But as far as salary, I was not making what I was worth with, 2 degrees and just coming out of college and the knowledge that I had. So I know that is one instance. And I think I stayed there for maybe I don't even know, maybe a month before I got a job that was more up to my level. And like I said, the cake business, when I was first starting out, I didn't understand. I didn't know what the supplies were going to cost. I didn't know how much time it was going to take. I didn't know how creative and artistic I really am. So I undervalue and underprice my cakes a lot. And honestly, sometimes I still do it. I think it's because I'm trying to please people. I'm trying to get the customer versus getting the customer that I want.
Right.
I'm just pleasing the customers that are coming to me. And that's...
Say that a little louder for the people in the back.
Yeah, if I could remember what I said. But yeah, so I mean, it makes me feel like crap too. I'm like, dang, I am worth so much more than that. Why am I selling myself short?
Yeah.
And I don't understand why that happens, but it does. It makes you feel crappy.
Yeah.
Did I learn from it? Sometimes I learn from it, and then other times I slip right back into that same habit. I'm working on changing it, because if you know your value and what you put out there, then you will attract the people that can afford that value.
So regarding value, is there anything or any tips or whatever it is that you do to increase the value of your services or the products that you sell? How can you make your price point more justified in your own head?
I think sometimes you look at, like we said, what the market is offering, and then just create more value, give more products, give an additional course or more information, something that's going to increase whatever it is that they're getting from you,
right?
What they're purchasing, what can make their life easier, what can solve problems for them. So just going above and beyond what everybody else in the industry is doing creates more value.
Right.
But I know you're really good at increasing the value of your products and services. So what do you recommend in regard to that?
Well, there's a term called value stacking, and it's when you take something and you increase its perceived value. Here's a very good one that was told by a guy named Russell Brunson, who's an internet marketer. And he was saying, he pulls his phone out of his pocket and he's like, I bet you I can sell you this phone for $10,000. And it's just I don't know, a regular old, Apple iPhone or whatever it is. And when you first hear something like that, you're like, $10,000 for a phone. You're like, have you lost your mind? No, I could just go down to the Apple store and grab one for $500. He was like, but what if I told you that in this phone is every contact that I've ever met regarding multi-million-dollar business deals? What if I told you that all of the people that have helped made my business successful is here and is willing to help? What if I told you in this phone as well is a direct line to me so that you can ask me what your business needs are? What if I told you that there's a secret code in this phone that'll allow you to go to weekly meetings with other multimillionaire people so that you can exchange information? Now, is this phone worth $10,000? And you're like, yeah, that phone is worth $10,000 if I can get all of that. So there's an importance of perceived value. You know, the initial perceived value of that phone is that it's like, you know, it's a $500 iPhone, but then he stacked value in it by making you think something is more expensive than it really is. You know, the perceived value of those numbers and the meetups and all of that. So I think it's a challenge for all of us as entrepreneurs, or if you're selling a physical product or a service, you have to make the person that you're selling it to think that the perceived value is something that's unbelievable, spectacular, that's well above the price point that you're about to sell that to. Like, for instance, with you, Mikel-Claire, you have, if I were to just look at a regular cake from Sam's or Walmart or whatever it is, and the price point that you charge for your cakes was on that, I'd be like, nah, I just don't see that happening. But then the perceived value and the reality of why your price point is what it is because it's handcrafted. The time has been spent to take personal requests so that you can design it to the exact specifications of what they're looking for. Everything from the color to the taste of the cake itself to the icing. It's delivered, hand delivered. It's fresh. There's so many things that go on that turn a regular cake into a masterpiece. So the perceived value of what it is that you're selling has just gone up exponentially. That, to me, is the secret of increasing the worth of something.
I think, and you've talked about this before, and maybe you can touch on it too. Like, what about like the fear of missing out on something?
Yeah, I think that's a really big part because there's just something in us that doesn't want to be left behind and be that person in the conversation while everybody else is happy. Like, we just got the brand new Sony 60-inch screens for like, $100 and you missed out because you were busy doing something else. Nobody wants to feel left out. So there's something about putting a premium on your product that is either regulated by scarcity. It's like a limited time kind of thing that's going to happen. It's only for a certain type of person so that people have their status kind of threatened and be like, this product isn't for you because you're not worthy of this product. And that's why I'm paying this amount for it. And you just aren't worthy enough to pay. You can't pay it because you're not worthy. Okay, so now you're going to feel some kind of way like, well, I'm missing out on something amazing because of something as small as price? Nah, not me. I'm going to go ahead and pay that extra amount of dollars. So nobody wants to just miss out on something that could be perceived to be incredible.
What about another thing that I think about in particular is scarcity of like a product or a service?
Your time is a really good example. Let's just say you're a fitness instructor. It's the first thing off the top of my head. And you say, listen, for the next 3 days, I'm going to increase the rate of my workout and fitness instructions, but it's only going to be for the next 3 days, but you're going to get me for twice the amount of time or whatever it is. But if you don't do it within these 3 days, I'm never going to offer this again. It's something that you'll never see again. I think a really good industry that does this are sneakerheads. These sneakerheads go out and they'll sit in line for hours on end, an entire day, because some shoe designer decided to write their name on the shoe in a Sharpie or something. I mean, I know I'm taking it to an extreme, but they're only going to write their name on like, I don't know, 20 shoes, and they'll never do that again for that particular shoe. That is going to make people stand in line for 20 hours just so they can see their favorite designer and be able to walk around with that person's signature on their shoe. So it's kind of like putting a timestamp. It goes back into that like fear of missing out mentality. Do any of those tactics kind of like resonate with you?
I think scarcity is probably a big one for me. If it's something that I feel that I need in order to make my life better or to solve some type of problem that I have in my life currently, then I absolutely will jump on it if I think there's only like 5 available. And the 5 people that get it are going to have some type of lead or some type of edge over other people, especially if it comes to business or if it comes to, like I said, something that will make my life easier in my caking or with my family or, you know, just with whatever market it is that they're gearing it towards.
Right.
So I absolutely would jump on it if I knew that it would make life better if there was only a limited supply.
Right.
So speaking of scarcity, we're running pretty scarce on time.
Oh.
So I think you need to say your catchphrase, Mr. Murphy.
No, you're absolutely right. Time is a scarce product, and we got to get out of here. So I'm going to go ahead and stick a pin in this bad boy.
You should go ahead and increase your value by smashing, as Papa Smurf likes to say, smashing that subscribe button and telling your friends and family about our podcast. Because we're talking
Money, value, worthiness.
apparently tequila.
Oh, yes. Like she said, smash that.
Subscribe button.
Like she said, smash that subscribe button. We are
The
couple.
Oh my gosh, do that again. We are
The couple of entrepreneurs. Thank you for tuning in. We're looking forward to your subscription. Peace out.